welcome our beloved viewer of Uganda Catholic Television, Good News for All, and welcome in a very special way to our program, Responsible Leadership, Responsible Citizenship, brought to you from the Justice and Peace Department of the Uganda Episcopal Conference. And in the studios today, my name is Dr. Kiiza Emmanuel ALIBA, the National Executive Secretary of the Justice and Peace Department. Thank you for keeping loving and watching our Catholic television, and thank you for loving this program. Wherever I go, I get very good feedback that you love this program, and I thank you for loving this program. We shall keep giving you what we feel is good in regard to the Catholic social teaching. And now we have been going through the various letters of the Catholic bishops of Uganda that they have written to us. Mainly, I usually target the young ones, because you young Ugandans, what happened in 1961-62, you were not there. So we have now to tell you what happened, and especially in regard to the voice of our Catholic bishops. The bishops have talked, the bishops have written, and because they have written where you were not, so it is our obligation who have that history to bring that history to you, so that you know on such and such a time, at such and such a time in Uganda, our bishop had something to say, and they actually said it, or they put it in a book. So we come again with another pastoral letter of the bishops. And this pastoral letter was written in April 1995. April 1995. And the title of the letter is Political Maturity, Constitution, Peace, and National Unity in Uganda. Political maturity, constitution, peace, and national unity in Uganda. This very pastoral letter of the bishops came out towards the final stages of the constitutional making process by the Constituent Assembly. By April 1995, the Constitutional Assembly delegates had been deliberating on the draft constitution for 1 full year. It had completed the various chapters. It had then decided to have a period of consideration and reconsideration of the entire work, and if possible, to resolve the contentious issues which had remained in the previous period. The bishops found this an opportune time to call on the Constitutional Assembly delegates to come up with a final product which would show political maturity and advance peace and national unity throughout the country. So you remember that in 1989, the bishops had written the first letter in regard to the constitutional making process. And they had submitted this letter guiding on how the process should go. And that letter was called Towards a New National Constitution, which was issued in March 1989. They did not only stop at that. In 1991, the bishops submitted a memorandum of their views to the Constitutional Commission, so that the views of the Catholic bishops are on record. So you can imagine, the first letter was giving guidance on how the constitutional making process should be, on the key themes that the constitution should have. And now in their second letter, on the same subject of the making of the constitution, they submitted their memorandum. They, as I told you, they had some good days in Gaba by themselves, and they invited in some experts to talk to them. Then after that, they compiled their views as the Catholic bishops of Uganda to be included in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. And now, this is the third letter that they are writing on the same topic of the constitution making process of Uganda. What does this tell you, dear viewer? The bishops took the issue of the making of the constitution of Uganda a very serious issue, to an extent of writing 3 letters on the same topic of constitutional making process and the constitution itself. Now here is the last letter they are writing to the Constitutional Assembly. This is a letter that the bishops are saying, this constitution should make us mature as Ugandans. We should no longer consider ourselves as immature in politics. No. Once we have a national constitution, we must consider ourselves mature citizens of the country. So they issued this last letter on constitution to the Constituent Assembly, as the Constituent Assembly was finalizing the work of making this constitution. As I had a friend who used to say that when you finish writing, you go back to read the text you have been writing, so that you are able to dot the I's, to cross the T's, and to put tails on the Q's. That was very interesting for me. That means you go back to your text to see where there is something you have not done well, then you can improve on it. Where you have made a mistake, you correct the mistake. He called it to dot the I's, to cross the T's, and to put tails on the Q's. I liked that friend of mine. So the Constituent Assembly was going into that process of dotting the I's, of crossing the T's, and putting tails on the Q's. So the bishops used this opportunity to also add another voice towards these final stages of coming up with the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda of 1995. The bishops used this message to appeal to the Constitutional Assembly delegates to use principled compromises to resolve controversial issues that would arise during their debates, so that both the majority and the minority in Parliament would equally claim full ownership of the final product. So the bishops did not want to see a national constitution being passed, a national constitution coming out, and some minorities say, we are not part of that work that was passed. We were bulldozed by the majority. The bishop said, we have to put a lot of attention. All the delegates in Parliament, either minority or majority, we must own the final product, the national constitution. The bishops reminded the Constitutional Assembly delegates that what most people were expecting from the new constitution was a clear sign of political maturity from their leaders, peace and national unity. This was the final product the Ugandans wanted. Yes, we sent delegates, they were debating, but for us as Ugandans, what we want as the final product is political maturity, we want peace, and we want national unity. This is what the bishops said. So now, when we look at the letter itself, political maturity, consolidating peace and national unity in Uganda, which was issued in April 1995. And this time, the bishops, if you have seen other letters, for example, the one of the letters we looked at was Let Your Light Shine of October 1992. If you see how the bishops began that letter, they said, "Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, and all people of God in Uganda." That was the beginning. If you see another letter that they wrote, let me look at the quick one here and see how they began that letter, because you are going to see a difference. Because we have to be very careful with the words of the bishops, because they choose the right words. You know, this one began, okay, we dealt with it, celebrating our ancestors in the faith, the one that they issued in November 1984. The bishops began this letter, they addressed this letter to our clergy, religious, all Christ faithful, and to all people of goodwill in Uganda, peace and God's blessing. You see the beginning of this letter, celebrating our ancestors in the faith, to our clergy, to religious, all Christ faithful, and to all people of goodwill in Uganda. Now, this letter, the opening, I think this is the smallest sentence I have seen in all the letters that we have gone through. They write very few words. To all the people of goodwill in Uganda. That was all. To all the people of goodwill in Uganda. Not clergy, not religious, not catechists, no. This letter, they wrote it to all the people of goodwill in Uganda. Not Catholics, not Anglicans, not Seventh-day Adventists, not Muslims, no. This letter was addressed to all the people of goodwill in Uganda. Whether you believe and trust them or not, they have written this letter. And it is meant for you. So this letter, the nature of this letter, this universal letter, if I may use my own words, universal, a letter that is meant for all Ugandans. These letters, we have to put a lot of attention to them. Either you are Catholic or not, the bishops now are talking as our senior citizens. They are talking from their experience and from their knowledge. They are giving us the guidance we have to follow if we have to ensure we are living in a good Uganda that we want. So When you look at the first number of the letter, the bishops are reminded the people on the past two letters that they had written in regard to the constitution. And then they also reminded the people on number two that the obligation for the Catholic Church to participate in politics is not out of bounds, no. We have all to work together so that we guide humanity on the right decisions that should be made in order for us to have a peaceful Uganda. So when it came to number three, the bishops were very, very emphatic on the issue of patriotism. Patriotism. The bishops said the Constituent Assembly, as it deliberates, must be guided by patriotism, the love for the country. At the background, they should leave all their affiliations, either political affiliation or religious affiliation, all the affiliations that you all cultural affiliation, we come together in the spirit of patriotism. So, and this is the spirit in which also the bishops issued this letter. And one thing they said, the constitution has to grant the power and sovereignty of the people of Uganda. They said some of the CA delegates tend to forget that they are delegates and not representatives. This is number 4, paragraph 2. They have to discuss issues taking into account the opinions of the people who elected them. Delegates are reminded to carry out their duties so that the constitution-making exercise ends within the scheduled time. They said uncalled for absenteeism from sessions is time and money wasting and should be discouraged. For those who were in the Constituent Assembly and for us who were there at that time, sometimes you would see some of the sessions that there was no quorum. There was no quorum. These are delegates who have been elected by people across the country, and they are there to discuss a very important document which is going to bind everyone, right from the president to the last person in the village. This document is going to be our, our guiding principle, it's our guiding document. How do you miss this unless you have a grave reason for missing? So bishops could see some absenteeism during the sessions, and they were not happy. So the bishops decided to guide the people, that we needed the people's views and all of them to be present. When you are not present, some issues are decided when you are not there, and that means we shall miss your input. So the bishop said the spirit of patriotism should be the guiding principles. It should be one of the guiding principles for constitutional making. They said all Ugandans are anxiously and legitimately waiting for the new constitution. We should, however, remember that the more demanding task of implementing and defending the constitution lies ahead of us. This is why the coming elections assume a particular importance, for through them we are going to elect leaders who will be responsible for enacting laws that will make the constitution a reality. Our beloved viewer of the Uganda Catholic Television, Good News for All, the bishops are taking responsibility in guiding the final process, the final stage of making the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. And they are putting everything in black and white, everything clear, so that we do not have any reason for coming up with a substandard document called the Uganda Constitution. The bishops are saying we have to be proud of the outcome of the deliberations, because for us as Ugandans, the process should end up in having a document that will help us to live peacefully, to have a national unity, and to show that Uganda now is politically mature. This is the document that the bishops were emphasizing. And I think this is why they took time. At the beginning of the process, they guided. In the middle of the process, they submitted their views. And now at the end of the process, they are taking us through what we have gone through, and a few things that do not go well in the process, in the constitutional making process. And now also they are preparing us to see how best to live in this era when we are now considering ourselves as mature in terms of politics. Because when the constitution is issued and promulgated, immediately the country becomes mature. We don't have any excuse. Of course, right after the constitution, now the elections were going to take place, electing leaders according to the constitution. So when we come back after our break, the bishops now are going to guide on how best we should live under the constitution. They are going to guide. So the guidance is there. We either take it or leave it, but wherever and whenever we have taken it, we have lived a very good life. We have lived in peace. And whenever and wherever we have not paid attention to the words of our elders, to the words of our bishops, somewhere we have had to suffer. You know, this one we have dealt with since I started bringing out these pastoral letters. You have seen the history since 1962, since we became independent. Our history has not been so clean, because somewhere we have become enemies of ourselves, somewhere we have become friends. So the bishops have continued to guide, and now they are guiding us on how the constitutional process, how the document should be well made, and how we should live in a new, mature Uganda. Let's now go and take the break. Then when we come, we shall again come with another second and last summary of the bishop's letter. Unfortunately, we cannot read it all, because the time we have is limited. What I suggest to all of you, please access this document. Access it. If you feel you need a copy of any document, come at our offices here at the Catholic Secretariat, so that we are able to provide to you with these documents. Read the website of the Uganda Episcopal Conference. You will find most of the documents are there. Just download one. You people with smartphones, make them smart in also researching on these matters that guide our lives as Ugandans. So thank you for viewing Uganda Catholic Television, Good News for All. We shall come again with the second part of this book, and then we shall leave this book, and next week we come with another one. Keep viewing Uganda Catholic Television, Good News for All. Welcome back from that short break. Thank you for watching Uganda Catholic Television, Good News for All. Before we left, we had started another pastoral letter of the Catholic bishops of Uganda, the third letter to address the issue of making a constitution of the Republic of Uganda. And this time they are issuing this letter at the end of the constitutional making process. So they are giving guidance on what the final product of the constitution should be. In the number 5 of this letter, the bishop said, we need a total reconciliation in this country. They say, as we prepare ourselves for national elections, we need to realize that these will not have any meaning if there is no total reconciliation. So, as now we are moving to live a constitutional life after the constitution has been promulgated, the bishops say one of the first things that Ugandans should have, that the government should help Ugandans to have, is total reconciliation. Because of our past dirty history, where we have knocked each other, Ugandans fighting Ugandans wherever. You know, go to northern Uganda, the war was there. Go to many parts of the country, Ugandans fighting Ugandans. So this was really, now the bishops are saying, we need a total reconciliation. So the bishop said, we commend all the steps taken by government to bring about national reconciliation, especially by facilitating the return of exiles. You know, many people had gone into exile. So now the bishops are saying, these who have gone into exile have to return. And when they return, we have to welcome them. We have to receive them. And some of them we have to resettle them. They said they should be given a chance to be reintegrated into their country as citizens willing to contribute to the growth of Uganda. So the return of the exiles. Then the bishop said in number 6, they said, we are convinced that the majority of the Ugandans are good and God-fearing people. So the bishops have a lot of confidence in us. Most of us Ugandans are good and God-fearing people. I thank God I'm one of them. The bishops have very good confidence in us, including myself. Good and God-fearing people. I don't know whether you are one of them. Can the bishops trust you that you are good and God-fearing? So, but they said the majority of Ugandans. I wish all Ugandans could be that. So our history shows that problems usually arise because misguided politicians misuse their power and offices. This is clear. We know it. Although some people don't want to believe it, is clear. So they say Ugandans should therefore be educated to distinguish between good and bad politicians, and should be particularly empowered to resist politicians who want to manipulate and deceive them. How I wish this can happen even now. Every election is an opportunity for us Ugandans to implement what the bishops have said. It is an opportunity to ensure that we get good politicians They say the population should also be initiated in legitimate and non-violent methods of defending their rights. We defend their rights in a legitimate and non-violent method. In building democracy, our politicians have to accept to be good losers and put more efforts into creating a real spirit of national unity. This one is tough. We are now preparing, next year we shall be preparing for another election to come the other year. And the bishops here are saying if we, Ugandans, you politicians, you have to learn to be good losers. You contest, you lose honorably. You contest, you win honorably. The moment I get a group of politicians and I have the opportunity to address them, I will use this letter. These are not my words, they are Bishop's words. Politicians should be good losers, just for the sake of national unity. Someone wins, the loser goes and shakes his or her hand. For the sake of national unity, you are my member of parliament. I don't know, possibly it is, can't that happen? Must you go to court? And when you know actually you are going to lose the case. If but the only change, the only problem is the processes of elections. Some of these processes are not very clear. So people feel, the contestants feel that they are not satisfied that they have actually lost. They feel that loss is not because people have not elected them actually, it is because of the processes. So those who are manning the processes of elections, I think we have to help our people so that they can trust the process of elections and then they can accept the results of such an election. Because if the results are coming from a good process, then there is, I can concede and say, yes, I'm a loser. So we have to help in making the electoral processes clear. Then they said, for this reason, again in number 6, for this reason, also no vote should be given for money, food, or other material benefits. For this reason, also, no votes should be given for money, food, or other material benefits. This is what the bishops guide. I'm not very sure that we have implemented this bishop's guidance. Because I see the process of elections is very expensive these days. It's very expensive. I really sympathize with our politicians. I see them spending a lot. And many of us are fearing to venture into politics because we cannot manage that expenditure. Myself, I must say, I cannot manage that expenditure, surely. Because there are very many other priorities that I have, like paying school fees for children. I want children to study. Either one is biologically my child or not, I want children to study. Now that is a big priority for me. So when I see a little girl, a little boy not in school, I want him or her to go to school. Now I can't use that money to go for politics. Because people have made politics very expensive. We cannot afford. But the bishops are saying no votes should be given for money, food, or material benefits. So, number 7, they bring out some human rights that have to be respected. The right to life. They talk of also the right to health, to access health. In health, they saw that our health system has a good infrastructure, and some places this has been rehabilitated. But the cry of our people is that in many medical units, patients are not well received and attended to, and in some cases, they have to search for drugs and equipment outside the establishment, which should be provided for. This is a common thing. We all know it. You go to a referral hospital, you are treated, but then they say this drug is not there. You go to the pharmacy. And sometimes the pharmacy where you go is owned by the very people who are referring you there. I think here we have really Ugandans to listen to what the bishops are saying. So we need to improve our health system. Here they also talked of the road accidents and say the anti-life elements in our country would like to mention road accidents, which have become a common feature, as press reports regularly attest. The police have to do their job, but this is in itself not enough. Passengers who use public means of transport and owners of vehicles must also assume their responsibilities. So the bishops are really guiding us in this. But you know, this letter was written in 1995. Now it is 2024, but even the road accidents every day, they're increasing in number. There are some drivers, really, who drive as if there is no tomorrow. Possibly, Ministry of Transport may consider giving licenses to responsible drivers. Those lower age, possibly they have nothing to lose. When I see how people are driving on the road, I usually ask my driver, does that one have something to lose? The problem is the person who has nothing to lose will cause the accident, which will take the lives of someone who has a lot of responsibilities. That's the challenge that I have, that we have in this country. So you see someone driving recklessly. You say, but... So the bishops here are saying the road accidents. So they say the security and freedom for all, the right to quality education, the right to justice, the rights of the disadvantaged. They say the level of development and concern of our country is also measured by the attention given to people who are in a way disadvantaged. Here they mentioned in paragraph 2, among the disadvantaged people, one should mention the refugees who have to be given a sincere and honest welcome in our country. That the refugees have to be given a sincere and honest welcome in our country. I thank God that the government of Uganda and all those who are taking care of the refugees, Office of the Prime Minister, you make us very proud, we who move out of the country. When our country is considered as one of the best countries in the world, that welcome the refugees and look after them. We feel very happy about it. So now, in regard to the refugees, I think the bishop's message has been taken seriously here. Bravo to all those who are taking care of the refugees. Bravo. Here we have our Caritas department. The Caritas department does a lot with the refugees in Bidi and in other areas, plus those Caritases in dioceses where the refugees are. Hoima in particular, I see a lot of work being done by Caritas Hoima, Hokadeo, the Justice and Peace Department Hoima. They do a lot to make sure that our refugees are received with sincerity and honestly. This is what the bishops are talking about. So I feel good to belong to a country which is appreciated for welcoming and taking good care of the refugees. So as they said also, among the poor are the orphans, the widows and widowers. Here we don't mention, we don't concentrate on widowers. We take care of widows more than the widowers. Now the bishops are saying, we should also take care of the widowers. They need special attention, especially in the context of the HIV/AIDS. So the plea is here urgent. So the final part of the letter that the bishops wrote to us on the political maturity, consolidating peace and national unity in Uganda. The final part is now the bishops encourage us to choose an appropriate political and economic system. Now that we are going to live under a robust constitution, we need to choose an appropriate political and economic system. So under the political system, the bishops say, this one is number 8, we affirm Uganda's right to evolve and to look for a political system that is best suited to our needs. This can only be done if Ugandans are not pressurized from inside or outside the country to choose one or the other system. We know that in this area there have been heated debates inside and outside the Constituency Assembly, although sometimes not in relation to the history and the nature of our country. The church, and indeed must advise on the lifestyle of society. Its members, whoever they are, have an obligation to contribute to the growth of their country. This obligation pertains not only towards, but includes positive steps towards promoting unity, stability, peace, economic and social development, in short, the common good. So the bishops want us to have a good and robust political system. Then number 9, they say about economic system, they say it should be obvious that human rights cannot be fully enjoyed unless women and men have the material means to earn their livelihood. Uganda is endowed with immense human and material resources. From this point of view, therefore, Uganda is not a poor country. That's what the bishops are saying. Uganda is endowed with immense human and material resources, and therefore, Uganda is not a poor country. Hard work and less indulging in drinking are positive factors towards the growth of our country. Hard work. The real problem lies in how the resources are exploited, managed, and distributed. It will take some time before the effects of the move towards economic liberalization, which is beginning to bear tangible fruits, are felt in the rural areas. This move needs to be accompanied with economic reforms in order to empower people at the grassroots. Now the bishop said the Ntandikwa project recently launched by government could be a start in the good direction if it is well managed and explained. So the Ntandikwa project, the bishop said, it's a good start, the Ntandikwa project. I applaud my predecessor, who was the minister in charge of Ntandikwa, Dr. Kisamba Mugerwa, is the one I replaced when I was becoming chairman of Microfinance Support Center. May his soul rest in eternal peace. So he was the minister for Ntandikwa here in Uganda. Public assistance can and must be given where resources are scarce. In regard, land and agriculture as the base of our economy must receive special attention. The government must continue to address the question of economic justice in a different regional and international fora so that the rural population can get fair prices for what they produce through so much labor. So fair prices for the goods that the people produce, for the agricultural products that people produce. This is still a challenge. I've just been in the village. Now a kilo of maize is as low as 500, 500, a kilo of maize. But sometimes it skyrockets up to 1,200 Uganda shillings. But now it is 500 because the maize is in plenty. So I think we really need our government to balance so that we can have stability in prices to favor the rural population. I think this is incumbent upon us, upon government, to ensure that our people prices do not fluctuate so much. We can see the best way of balancing them. The bishops concluded and said, dear brothers and sisters, our tasks as citizens and Christians are indeed great. We have to be participants in the process of constitutional making. We cannot remain disinterested or indifferent. We are all duty-bound to contribute to this important task of shaping the future of our country. We have a duty to see to it that our future constitution be implemented properly, not forgetting the right of each citizen, the right each citizen has to make known his or her viewpoint. Only with freedom of expression and good action can Uganda grow up to full maturity. Polarization of positions, sectarian approaches, tribal rivalry, and regional isolation, political and economic exploitation are all factors which hamper the process of real democratization. We are duty-bound to make positive contribution to the growth of our country. This is very important for us, that each citizen of Uganda is duty-bound to make positive contributions to the growth of our country. I see some people are aloof. The bishops are saying we are duty-bound, each one of us, to make our singular and collective contribution towards the growth and development of our country. The development of the country is a collective effort. We do it together. So don't stay aloof. For us in Bunyoro, we say binkwatireki. Binkwatireki embwa neraba mutaba. We say when the dog is going through the garden of tobacco, It doesn't matter because there's nothing to. See, the dog doesn't eat tobacco, so being quite the dog going through the garden of tobacco. But we have all to come together with all our small efforts and all our collective efforts to ensure that we develop our country. The bishops say, at the end, they say, our future has to be built now, and we cannot wait tomorrow to start thinking and acting. Our future has to be built now. Our duty as citizens of Uganda and as Christians is to be peacemakers and builders of society. So the bishops concluded their letter and they say, we entrust all our efforts to God, asking Him to guide our actions. Fellow lovers of Uganda Catholic Television, this has been the summary in my own words and also reading the very words of the bishops as they are writing to us about the final steps of coming up with the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda of 1995 and also preparing us how to live now in the new constitutional era after the Constitution has been promulgated. So this marks the end of the bishop's pastoral letters on the constitutional making process. We are coming again next week with another letter. And this letter is particularly, the bishops particularly address it to the women. The women. So when we come here next week, we shall deal with that particular letter that the bishops wrote to the women. Thank you for watching, for viewing Uganda Catholic Television. Keep loving our program, Responsible Citizenship, Responsible Leadership, and keep supporting this Catholic television. It needs your support. Any kind of support that you have, come and support our television because it is the instrument, it is the channel through which we shall be giving you, we shall be sharing with you some of these treasures that we have here at the Catholic Secretariat, like the treasure of the bishop's pastoral letters. They will come to you. And when we end those pastoral letters, we shall again deal in another program so that you keep abreast of what is going on, not only in your church, but also in the country and in the entire world. Thank you for viewing Uganda Catholic Television. Good news for all.